Halloween Ends is the third and final installment of the most recent Halloween movie trilogy. 4 years after the events of Halloween Kills, Laurie Strode is living with her granddaughter Allison and is finishing writing her memoir. Michael Myers hasn't been seen since. But when a young man, Corey Cunningham, is accused of killing a boy he was babysitting, it ignites a cascade of violence and terror that will force Laurie to finally confront the evil she cannot control once and for all. On the whole, I think that summarizes the movie up quite nicely, and I think that people are going to be pretty divided on this one depending on how big of a Halloween fan you are. So if I describe my experience with this movie in one sentence, it would be that fans of the franchise I don't think are going to walk away satisfied with this movie. However, if you're just a general movie going fan and you know a little bit about Halloween, I think this movie is actually ideal for you. Me belonging into the latter category, I actually walked away pretty satisfied and really excited about the ambition of this movie, even if I didn't think it was all that great of a film. So let me get into what I really enjoyed about Halloween Ends. I think Halloween Ends really satiated my appetite for a decent slasher film. There's a lot of blood and gore to be had in this film, as there are with a lot of other Halloween movies within the franchise, and this movie really sticks to that DNA well and makes those scenes count. There were times where I got really squeamish watching some of the kills. A lot of it gets really creative and about the worst sadistic ways possible, and they even find ways to make some comedic moments out of it, which is also kind of disturbing. Just when you think that slasher movies like those of Halloween Ends can't get more creative, they always find a way to pull out the stops and surprise you. There is one kill in particular in this movie that sticks out in my mind. I'm not going to give it away because that would be spoiler territory, but when you see this movie and you know exactly which one it is, let me know down in the comments below. I'd love to hear what your favorite is. So for those of you out there who are fans of the slasher sub-genre and you go in and are expecting that in this movie, I think you're going to be quite pleased with it. Additionally, I really enjoyed the character relationships that are present throughout the movie. Although typical slasher horror films don't typically go for deep character relationships, I thought this movie employed two different relationships quite well, and it really added another dimension to the movie that I think was lacking in the previous installment. When you see relationships like grandparent to granddaughter or boyfriend to girlfriend in this movie, it adds a sense of relatability that you can kind of empathize with. Both relationships run into issues, run into obstacles, run into decisions that a lot of you have probably faced in your own life before. And I think it really humanizes the movie and makes the experience something a little bit more empathetic and something that you can really latch onto. I always like to think that when you can see art reflected back at you and you can see the parallels within your own life, it just naturally enhances the experience. And I think Halloween Ends did that pretty strangely, but it also did it effectively. And additionally, I really enjoyed the ambition that this movie actually went for throughout its plot. Myself, I'm semi-familiar with the Halloween franchise, even though I'm not really much of a fanatic, but this film really tries something different that I don't think the Halloween franchise has tried very much before. And although I think that this ambition was also a bit of to its detriment, I think that it still was ambitious enough and landed it well enough in order to still be somewhat successful. Now, that can be a very divisive point depending on how big of a fan of the Halloween franchise that you are, but for a casual fan like myself, I actually kind of dug it and I thought it was well placed by and large. Now let me shift over to what I didn't like so much about this movie. As I mentioned earlier, although I like the ambition and the direction that they went through in this movie, I think that it was a little bit unclear as to the explanation of that direction. Without giving away spoilers, this movie tries something very different in the supernatural vein when it comes to our main bad, which is Michael Myers and the people of Haddonfield, Illinois. And I love the fact that this movie went for novelty, but they don't exactly explain what they're trying to do by the time the movie ends, and it really makes for a big loose end to the film that will really have you scratching your head. And I'm being very vague here to avoid spoilers because it's really the main crux of the movie, but just when I thought I had an idea of what they were going for, they started introducing things into the movie that really contradicted what I thought I knew, and that really compromised my experience with the movie because I just felt like I was totally missing something that they were trying, and I think I forgot or just didn't really understand the aha moments of the entire movie. And although it was cool to see something new in that vein, I would have liked to have understood it just a little bit better, and I think the movie could add a lot more clarity in that regard. And additionally, I didn't really enjoy the jump scares that were had in this movie, even if they weren't too obnoxiously over the top. And about the first half of the film is where most of the jump scares take place, and it got to the point where I was getting worried that this movie was just going to be a jump scare fest that was just really, really annoying. And although that first half did get on my nerves a little bit, the jump scares did eventually fade, and they weren't nearly as drastic as I thought they were going to be, which I guess is kind of a pro but a con at the same time. If jump scares frustrate you like they do me, just be warned, in the first half there's quite a few of them, and it really didn't enhance my experience because I think jump scares are pretty cheap, but that's just my subjective opinion. You might love jump scares, you might hate them. Me, I don't like them. And finally, the one really big gripe I had with Halloween Ends is the fact that it requires you to have some familiarity with the Halloween franchise before seeing this movie. I get it, this movie is the final installment in a trilogy, it's a sequel film, but having said that, if you know absolutely nothing about the Halloween franchise or know who Michael Myers is and you go and watch this movie, you're going to be totally and utterly lost and you will not enjoy this experience. So for those of you who are in that boat, be warned, I actually would recommend perhaps watching at least one other Halloween film before going and watching this one. Halloween Ends makes a lot of assumptions, like you know who Michael Myers is, you know the history of Jamie Lee Curtis in this franchise, you know who Laurie Strode is. It requires all of those things, which if one movie requires you to watch 2 or 3 other films before and going and watching it, I think that's a bit of a problem. The fact of the matter is, if you have 4 to 6 hours of required viewing or reading before you go and see a movie, it's really going to alienate your audience and it's really going to lessen the amount of people who will go and see the movie. To me, that's just never a good thing. So friends, with all that said, if I had to give this movie a score, I'm going to have to give Halloween Ends a 6 out of 10. I thought it was okay. Worth watching. For those of you who are diehard fans of the franchise, I think you'll be disappointed with this movie. For those of you who are more casual fans like myself, I think there's something for you to enjoy here that will satiate your appetite for a good horror slasher film. Friends, thank you so much for watching another movie review. If you thought this was helpful or valuable, I'd be honored if you consider clicking the like button, clicking these end cards up above, or the links down in the description below for your viewing pleasure. Once again, I've been Bryce. Until next time, have a great day.